Hi, I'm Shane Jones. Making headlines tonight. Prime Minister Mia Motley confident the island's economic indicators are pointing in the right direction. An initiative launched to get tourists to spend more money while in Barbados. A triage system to be introduced at 2 polyclinics. And in sports, the body of former West Indies batting great Seymour Nurse reposed at Empire Club.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC News Night, starting now.
Leading the news at 7, Prime Minister Mia Motley is confident that Barbados is on the right path, just 1 week shy of a year since her administration swept into office. And she believes a pending assessment from the International Monetary Fund on Barbados' progress due in just another 2 days will confirm it. The Prime Minister made the comment as she addressed the annual general meeting of the Barbados Employers Confederation at the Lloyd Erskine Sandyford Centre, where she also called on local employers to play their part to help Barbados to be the best that it can be. Now, our Ryan Broom was there and joins us live now with more on what the Prime Minister had to say to employers. Good evening, Ryan. So what were some of the other major areas that came to the fore during the Prime Minister's address?
Well, good evening, Shane. Good evening, viewers. Prime Minister Motley touched on key areas such as stabilization, transformation and facilitation. As she says, the groundwork is constantly being laid to give Barbados the anchor it needs to prosper. But she believes if employers and workers in the public and private sector all strive for excellence in their respective fields, everyone can ultimately play their part to, in her words, help Barbados soar. And reflecting on the past 11.5 months, the Prime Minister says whenever she has been asked what the main priority of her administration was, the response was to first stop the rot and to build a platform for stabilization. She says there is evidence that her administration's efforts so far have had a significant overall positive impact on the island's position compared to a year ago.
Believe you me when I say that all of our indices are going in the right direction, and I think you will hear that from independent parties on Friday when the IMF mission concludes its first review mission of the program for the first 6 months of the IMF program.
Now, in thanking the BEC for its important input into the initial stages as part of the social partnership, the Prime Minister adds that stabilization was just one part of the mission to revive the island.
It was never our intention to seek to stop the rot or to stop the bleeding and to remain in the same position. By all measurements, it is clear that the decline of all the major indices or the upward trajectory of the wrong indices have all stopped. As we speak today, our reserves are just under 1.1 billion, up from 400 million odd as they were a year ago. As we speak today, our debt to GDP ratio, including the arrears of 1.9 billion that we found only after coming into office, is down from 171% to 125%.
And now Ms. Motley says some critical issues of transformation and facilitation still remain to be tackled, especially as it relates to retraining, enfranchising, retooling and empowering the workforce through the RE initiative and the ease of doing business in the island.
We understand our role as a legislator. We understand our role as a facilitator and removing the bureaucracy of, I almost said decades, but in some instances, centuries of years of rules that have literally ossified, calcified our capacity to do business in this country. And it requires, as we said, from opposition, some of you who were having these discussions with me from 7, 8 years ago must be tired hearing me say it. But we've only had 1 year to do it thus far. And the platform has been laid of deconstructing and reconstructing almost every major public service in this country.
So Shane, an acknowledgement by the Prime Minister that much still needs to be done in terms of transformation And that will no doubt come through things such as the planned digitization of some of government's payment systems in the coming months, as outlined in the budget, along with government's training and retraining initiatives. Now, just one more quick note that the Prime Minister also touched on, the issue of regional carrier Liat, now saying she was not going to be lulled into shouting across the region on the issue, preferring only to say that her administration is committed to reliable, affordable access to air travel in the region. Shane, it's back to you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Well, an initiative aimed at getting tourists to spend more money while they're here will get underway this weekend. Tourism Minister Carrie Simmons says it will also set Barbados' tourism product apart from others in the Eastern Caribbean. Sharika Griffith tells us more.
It's being called Festive Fridays, a nighttime craft market set to take place at Pelican Village.
It has bugged me at no end that Pelican Village has been what it is. It is too exquisitely positioned, too close to the Bridgetown port to be doing such little business with the traffic that comes from the Bridgetown port. We have to find a way to fix that. And equally, I am confident that there are sufficient hotels on the West Coast and on the South Coast that we can also bring in some land-based, long-stay tourists so that they can be part of the experience.
The initiative will allow craft people, food vendors, entertainers, artists, and a number of other small business people to connect with potential customers on board cruise ships docked in the port. Already, the Royal Caribbean brand has agreed to sail later to allow their passengers to attend.
I expect confidently that Carnival will confirm in the not too distant future their participation. Cruise ships, which are with us during the summer season, and once we can get that right and we can maintain a certain standard, then it stands to reason as night follows day that others in the winter season, which is when we really have far more cruise traffic, will also want to have that experience, and Barbados will have a new product on an annual basis.
Minister Simmons says there are also plans to include the nearby Bridgetown Fish Market as the event grows.
Because that fish market experience is also something that visitors are increasingly curious about. I said in Parliament as recently as last night, you know, visitors now want to go into Oystons, they want to go into the fish market in Bridgetown, and they want to learn how you bone fish, they want to learn how you scale fish, they want to learn how you prepare. Now that's the problem, because in our fish markets by day and in the afternoon, nobody's actually doing any food preparation. But we can enhance the experience by having the food preparation being done.
It's hoped that residents of neighboring communities will eventually be responsible for the staging of this event. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
With the official start of the 2019 crop over season less than a month away, the NCF has recognized the critical role the sponsors will play in its success. First Citizens Bank is the title sponsor of the crop over launch and ceremonial delivery of the last canes. The NCF teamed up with them this morning to give a little preview of what's in store for this season with some festival flavor outside of their Bridgetown offices. NCF CEO Carol Roberts-Reefer says First Citizens Bank perfectly demonstrates what it means to be crop over correct.
It means that they, and hopefully you, truly celebrate the origins, the current status, but also the future of the festival. To be crop over correct means that you walk a little differently during this time, you're smiling more often, you're moving to the artistic efforts of our musicians and our vocalists and our DJs. It means that you're eating everything Bajan. It means that you're fully immersed in the festival.
The NCF CEO urged all Barbadians to get involved in the festival in whatever way they wish to.
If your church gets together and has a crop over event, if your community group has a shop line within this time period, if you just dress a little differently, if your office has a Festival Friday where the staff will put on their colorful shirts and dress crop over correct, it means that yes, you are crop over correct and you are supporting the festival.
First Citizens Bank CEO Carol Eleuthère Jean-Marie says it is with a sense of pride that the bank partners with the NCF.
First Citizens has always been a proud sponsor of culture and history, and for us, we see the Crop Over Festival as being aligned to our corporate social responsibility pillars. First Citizens has been associated with this event over the last 5 consecutive years, and for us, our partnership with the NCF started through with CityFest, and it's well over a decade since we have been contributing to the arts and culture in Barbados.
Listen up, the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union has made it clear it will not tolerate any more instances of student or teacher violence. This was communicated by President Marianne Redmond during a mass meeting at Solidarity House earlier today. Our Sharika Griffith was there and filed this report.
Teachers from a number of primary and secondary schools are meeting in the auditorium just behind me. This meeting has been called because of what they say is an increasing number of student on teacher violent incidents.
Since the beginning of this term, there have been 5 incidents of student on teacher violence against our members. And we are here today to say not one more. The last of these got full national attention with the very encouraging words and progressive action of Chief Magistrate Chris Birch. We need more like him.
BSTU President Marianne Redmond says of those 5 incidents, 4 of them involved female teachers. She also made another startling revelation.
So there is this points challenge now circulating in the schools. And if you attack a teacher, you get points. Yes. Yes. So student on teacher attacks to score points.
During the meeting, teachers were also provided with a written document detailing steps they should take should they be threatened or attacked by a student.
Make an immediate verbal report to the principal about the incident. Immediately. Indicate to the principal the need for police intervention, because we have to start making sure that these children are charged. Let these children understand that there are consequences to their actions. This kid glove approach and a tap on the wrist is not working.
Union officials are set to meet with the Ministry of Education to discuss these and other issues come Saturday. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Police have confirmed that a 13-year-old Springer Memorial student has drowned. She is 13-year-old Christina Reed of Gemswick St. Philip, who reportedly went to the Pierhead Beach on Bay Street with 2 friends. Reports are that she got into difficulty while in the water around 1:45 this afternoon and had to be rescued. The teenager was taken to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital by ambulance in an unconscious state. However, efforts to resuscitate her were unsuccessful. The Springer Memorial was closed for the last 2 days to facilitate examinations. Similar to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, a triage system where patients are treated based on the severity of their condition will be in place at the David Thompson Health and Social Services Complex in St. John. A similar system will also be set up at the Winston Polyclinic in the city as these 2 health facilities move towards providing 24-hour service. The initiative is aimed at cutting down on the waiting time at the Accident and Emergency Department of the QEH by offering patients round-the-clock service at alternative venues. Pharmacies, however, will not be moving towards the 24-hour service come June 1st. Head of the Winston Scott Polyclinic, Dr. Ingrid Cumberbatch, outlined the services to be offered on CBC TV8's Morning Barbados.
The services that will be available under the 24-hour service would usually be what we call our urgent care services. These services will consist of minor injuries, minor illnesses, for example, if you have cough, cold, dengue, also if you have in terms of minor cuts, falls, those are the sort of things that you would come to the polyclinic for the 24-hour service. It is basically an extension of what we have now as our fast-track service at the Winston Scott Polyclinic.
The tourism sector should be in for a big boost as government moves to develop some prime land in St. Michael. Last evening in Parliament, Minister of Housing and Lands George Payne led off debate on a resolution for the compulsory acquisition of land at Lower Bay Street. The 7,328 square meters of land is to be acquired for the public purpose of tourism development, which will include the construction of the Hyatt Hotel. Minister Payne says investment in the area is a critical component of the island's economic recovery.
The particular area is part of an area stretching from the Garrison to the Screwdock, the Blackwood Screwdock in Bridgetown, which presents Barbados with an abundance of opportunities for tourism development, especially given that tourism is the main driver of the economy.
In response, opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley posed a number of questions which he says must be answered.
Why is it that the state has to intervene and acquire this property? Why is it that developers, who by all implications, all indications, should be in a financial and economic position to privately negotiate for the purchase of this property, face the music and pay the piper? Why is that not the route being taken? If that route has been tried and it has failed, then you need to tell us so.
The Senate today debated a number of bills aimed at improving transparency in several areas. The bills before the morning session were the Charities Amendment Bill, the Companies Amendment Bill, the Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorism Amendment Bill, the Corporate and Trust Services Providers Amendment Bill, and the Financial Services Amendment Bill. Minister of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology, Senator Kay McConney, says the bills relate to Barbados' obligation under its commitment to follow regulations of Financial Action Task Force.
Barbados is required at the end of May to report to the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force on the progress we have made with regards to making the legislative changes and other adjustments that we were required to make in our jurisdiction. It is important that we report well and report significant progress.
Opposition Senator Crystal Drakes, in her contribution, highlighted concerns with respect to legislation. While singling out the Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorism Amendment Bill, she notes Barbados is trying to be compliant.
It seems to me that in the very near future, possibly, we are looking at the possibility of opening casinos in Barbados, which is a conduit for money laundering. So I'm just wondering if we're working with a double-edged sword here. On one hand, our regulations and our oversight are seeking to reduce our vulnerability, but the investment that has come into Barbados and the type of investment then further increases our vulnerability.
Checking in with our regional neighbors now, there is concern in Trinidad and Tobago that the influx of Venezuelan migrants could pose a threat to food safety. The matter was raised at a workshop organized by the Caribbean Public Health Agency and the Pan American Health Organization on integrated foodborne surveillance in the Caribbean. We have a report from CNC3 TV.
We've had Chinese coming intermittently over the last 10 years, Arabs, and now we have a Venezuelan, influx of Venezuelans.
With over 40,000 Venezuelans already in TNC and hundreds more trying to register with the Ministry of National Security before the end of the month, Acting Principal Medical Officer at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Miriam Richards, says she is concerned this can result in an increase in foodborne diseases. According to Dr. Richards, these Venezuelans are selling food products in TNT. In most instances, she adds, without the proper legal requirements.
Most of them don't understand or speak English beyond basic hello, good morning. Are they aware? Have we inspected their homes? So we have a big threat coming up with the migrant health issues with respect to food for sale, because I'll say empanada is $5 now, so big empanada with meat in it, so it's obviously could be seen as being more cost effective than doubles.
Meanwhile, Dr. Erica Wheeler, PAHO WHO representative in Trinidad and Tobago, tells CNC3 News it is important that the authorities robustly monitor the sale of food, especially by migrants. This, she says, is crucial not only for the safety of locals, but the migrants as well.
Eastern districts of the Cayman Islands have been hit hard with Sargassum seaweed stretching miles across the coast. Residents and tourists are complaining, as we hear from Cayman 27.
Longtime Bordentown resident Emil Levy says there's no mistaking the stench caused by recent waves of sargassum.
Because you can smell it all the way inland.
John Morgan has fished all his life in Bordentown.
I grew up right here in Bordentown, and this is the worst I was seeing it there.
Walking through this thick mud of sargassum is like wading through swampland. The smell of dead fish is all around. I can't explain enough how smelly and itchy this is.
But right now it stink.
It smells nasty and stink.
Very terrible to the community. We have a stench.
But it's not only the residents who are impacted.
The tourists is complaining about it, and then if they ever try to go in the water, I've been there and it itches them.
The Department of Environment says climate change may be responsible for this current scene. It says there's no doubt the ocean temperatures are rising, causing the seaweed to bloom in larger amounts. Mr. Levy agrees.
We have global warming that is going into effect. It is my surmise that this is what is causing this particular uncomfortable situation right now.
He says this will need a multi-agency approach.
Let's all work together. This problem will not go away by itself.
And while works have begun to start the cleanup process for the recent wave of sargassum, those who live in Bordentown don't know how long this one will last or how bad the next one will be.
Guyana is moving to make its carnival one of the top events in the region. Guyana Carnival was launched last year. We have a report from HGP TV.
Now in its second year, Guyana Carnival is quickly becoming an eagerly anticipated event, both locally and in the diaspora. Director of the annual event, Kerwin Bollers, explained that the idea for a local carnival was birthed from Guyana's 50th Golden Jubilee in 2016. Bollers said during the inaugural carnival held last year, the country recorded thousands of visitors, so much so that Minister of Tourism at that time, Catherine Hughes, had opined that Guyana should capitalize on celebrating this event on a grand scale annually.
We had a few events around that time. We had about 4 concerts around that time, basically, which was very well attended. And we were doing some research on the ground, and we realized that a lot of persons who came to Guyana found it very fitting to come to Guyana during that period. So the very next year, there was nothing in terms of celebration for independence after the Jubilee, and we thought that, this is a good idea and a good time for us to do something to kind of follow up on what was done.
With the Department of Tourism on board with the initiative, the director says that the focus is to highlight Guyana on the world map. Bollers told Nightly News that the Guyana Carnival is intended to further expand tourism and show Guyana's beauty, uniqueness, and unity. However, he reiterated that the activity is not intended to cast a shadow on or disregard the historical cultural festival of Mashramani.